share my screen. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Let me know if anyone is not able to see the screen. Just want to close few apps. Give me a
Uh,
moment. Yes.
it's visible, Ravi.
Okay. So, yeah. So, like I said, we are going to start continue from where we had left off. So, yesterday we've discussed about your users, right? Your users in Linux machine. So, generally, when we talk about your users, we have two types of users. We have your root users. So, we can call them as your root users and non-root users, right? So, root user is your admin user who has full access. They can do whatever they want in the server, and then you have the non-root user. So any users whom, if you want to give access to your Linux machines, you can do that by making use of this non-root user. So generally what happens is, we will have one single machine which will be used by multiple people, right? So you will have only one root user at a time, right? And then you can start adding more people to the server, and you can start giving them the necessary access as to what they can do in the server. For example, let's say they can create files, they can create folders, they can modify the permission. So you can control all those things. You can specify what the users can do. So yesterday we discussed a bit about your root users. Now, how do you add your non-root users, or how do you give access to your Linux machines, right? So for that, we have different commands that we can use in the Linux machine. Just give me one minute. I just want to quickly launch one machine to show this. So this will be my demo. Mm, it's like my keypad, my firewall. Uh, just waiting for the server to come up. Okay, so the server is running. Let me quickly log into this. Okay, so here I have the server. Now, by default, you'll have only one user, which is your root user, right? And also here in this case, we have this one more user, which is your EC2 hyphen user. We also have this user, right? That's the default user. In this case, I'm using the EC2 instance. So that's why we have this user, right? So this AWS has taken care of it to create this user for us. Now, you can find the list of all of your users, right? So if you go to this seed etc folder, here you should be able to see a file with the name passwd. All right, so this particular file, so this is where you'll have the list of all the users and what all permissions they have. All that information will be available in this particular file. Okay, so if I open up this file, so here these are all the users we have. So you can see I have the root user here, and I have the EC2 hyphen user, and then we have few other users which is for the system, right? But this is where you can find. So when you add your users, this is where the users will be added with the necessary permissions as well, right? Now, how do you add your users? So if you want to add your users, you can make use of this user add command. All right, so you can use this user add and the name of the user. So it's a two-step process. First, you will need to add the user, and then you will need to set the password for that particular user. So let's say I will add Prokshit. All right, so I'll give the name. So all right, so I need to have root privileges for this. So you can see I'm running this as a non-root user, and I'm getting a permission denied error. So basically this particular command, it needs a root permission. So now either I can become a root user, or I can use the sudo and then pass the command. So this is like giving the root privileges for that particular this non-root user. So now you can say I did not get that error. And now if I read this file, I should be able to see that Prokshit has been added as a user. So like this, we can make use of this user add command to add your user. So let's say I'll add Bharat just for the sake of example. Okay, so now we have two users. Now, like this, you can start adding more and more users you want. And the next step would be to set the permissions for this user. So how do you set the permissions for your users? If you want to set the permissions for the user, you can make use of this passwd command. So this is the command which we can use to set your password. So I'll say passwd, and then you'll also need to specify the user for which user you want to set the password, right? Again, this is asking me to, only a root user or admin user can do that. So I'm giving the root privileges over here. Now I can set the password. So here, I'll set the password and I will confirm the password, and my password has been set for this particular user. Likewise, let's say I will set the password for Prokshit as well. So here, I'll set the password and my password has been set. Now, what you can do is you can use this username and password to log into the EC2 instances. All right. So let's say, for example, until now we have been using the key pairs, right? Now, you don't have to use the key pairs. You have the username and password. We can use that. So I can simply say SSH, your username at the server. So here we're not using any key pair authentication. Now, by default, this will not work, just so you know. Why this will not work? Because your EC2 instances by default does not support password authentication. So here you can see nowhere it prompted me for the password, and it is simply giving me a permission denied error. So by default, your EC2 instances does not support the password authentication. So for that, I think, let me check. Sorry. I think this is the file where we have to enable the password authentication. Yeah, okay, so here you can say this password authentication is set to no. So I'll simply change this to yes. And then we will do a service SSHD start. And now let's try this once again. And let's see what this will do. You can see now this is prompting me for the password. So whatever the password I have set, I can give that password, and you can see we have logged in as Bharat. To the same server, we have logged in as Bharat. So like this, we can make use of your password authentication. So like this, you can start adding more users. You can set the permissions as well for those users. Now, um, generally, we don't use the password authentication. So what we do is we ask the users to generate their own keys, the public key and private keys. And then we start adding those public keys to the server. And as a user, you can start using the private keys to connect to the server. Questions?
No, sir. When we're running as root, like, we don't have to use sudo in the starting, right?
No, not required. So that is, you're like telling you're already an admin user. So whatever the commands you're going to run, that will be running as an admin user only. So you don't have to explicitly specify sudo for that.
Through any error?
Sorry?
Even if you mention sudo, like, while running as
No
root
problem.
user,
I
does
mean,
it throw any
it
error?
does not. It does not matter. It won't really matter to your Linux machine. Okay. 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 Cool. So now, likewise, at any point, if you want to delete any user, we can do that also. For that, you can use this user del command, which is to delete your user. So let's say I want to delete Prokshit. So I can use user del and then the username, and this will go ahead and delete the user. So basically, the file that we have, the passwd file, that will be updated. So you can say I don't have Prokshit in this. So that's how you can create your users. You can, I mean, there are many more things to this. You can also make a non-root user, a root user. You can give them the pseudo permissions and all those things. I'm not going to talk about that here, but this is at a very high level how you can create users and you can delete the users. Any questions with this?
No, Abhi.
No, sir.
All right. The next thing I want to talk about is your paths. So in Linux, we have two types of paths. All right. So we have your absolute path and then we have your relative path as well. Now, these are nothing but how you can navigate to your Linux machines, the different ways to navigate to the Linux machines. All right. So absolute path is the complete path. All right. So starting from your root directory, the complete path. For example, let's say you have your C drive. So starting from C drive, then let's say your username, then let's say downloads inside that another folder. So that complete path, we call it as your absolute path. And then relative path is just a folder, which is, like for example, let's say inside downloads, you have one folder. You just want to access that particular folder. That we call it as your relative path. All right. So an absolute path is defined as specifying the location of a file from the root directory. So in Linux, whenever you start with a slash, we call that as a root directory. For example, over here, say if I say cd slash. Okay, so this is, I'm telling I'm starting from the root directory. All right. So in other words, we can say that an absolute path is a complete path from start of the actual file system, which is your slash directory. So you might have seen in this case also, if you see, I did a slash etc slash ssh slash ssh. So this is nothing but we call it as your absolute path. Okay, the complete path starting from your root directory, we call it as your absolute path. So at any point, if you want to navigate to the to a folder which is there in your root directory, this is how we do it. So for example, let's say you're in the C drive. Now you want to navigate to the F drive. So what we do is we start from the F drive, right? So that is considered as a root directory. And then you have the relative path. So relative path is defined as path related to the present working directory. So within the existing directory, you just want to navigate to the some other folder. So in this case, if you see, this becomes my relative path. So with your relative path, we won't be using the forward slash. All right. So suppose I'm located in var log and I want to change directory to var log kernel. I can use the relative path concept to change the directory to kernel. Right. So I'm already there in the path that I want to be. Now I just want to navigate to, let's say, this folder. So I'll simply use cd and I will navigate to that folder. So we call this as your relative path. So whenever your path starts with a forward slash, we call that as your absolute path. And if you don't have a forward slash, we call it as your relative path. Questions?
No, Abhi.
Okay. Next is archiving files on the command line. Now this can sometimes this can be useful if you want to like compress files in your Linux machines, uncompress them, all those things you can do with your Linux machines. Like how on your Windows machine we can use 7-zip, we can use WinRAR. Likewise, on your Linux machines also we have different tools that we can use to compress your files, uncompress the files, and all those things. So the Linux tar, it stands for tape archive. So this is nothing but you're creating an archive, a tape archive, which is compressing the files, right? So which can be used by large numbers of Linux or Unix system admins to deal with tape drives backup. So this is mostly used when you want to create backups of your files. You want to take a backup before you mess around with the original files. So the tar command is used to rip a collection of files into highly compressed archive files, commonly called tarball or tar, gzip, bzip2 in Linux. So there are different tools here available. Now let's say, for example, uh, so again you can see here I've used an absolute path, right? Now here I'll create one folder. So let's say new folder. I'll go to that folder and let's say we have a few files over here. Let's say file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. All right. So here we have 4 files. Now I want to compress these files. So one of the option we have is we can use this tar command. So you have different options. You have tar, gzip, bzip, different options. We are going to look at your tar command. So tar hyphen cvf, your file name and the files. So what this command will do is this will create an archive for you. So let me explain this. So tar hyphen c is to create. So you're telling I want to create an archive file. V is verbose. You're telling show me the output. F, I think F would be for your files. So here you can find all that information. So I'm looking for F. Let's see F. Okay, so C you can see it
File.
is to create file. Is it okay? Yeah.
File
So
name Ravi. If
correct. So F is to specify the files that you want to archive, and then you have the V option, which is to show the output. I mean, you're just telling me show me the output, whatever you're doing. Okay, so these are the options we are passing. So tar hyphen cvf, and then the name of your archive. So let's say file backups dot gz, and then the files that you want to add to this archive. So let's say we have file 1, we have file 2, file 3, file 4. So what this will do is this will create a zip file for me. So now I have a backup of all these files in this particular zip file, and I can start messing around with this to do whatever I want. It is possible. So like this, at any point, if you want to create an archive file, we can do that by making use of your tar command. Questions with this? Okay. Now let's go ahead and delete all these things. So right, so I've deleted all the original. Oops, sorry, I deleted that as well. Sorry. And let me. I have the backup file over here. Now, if you want to unzip it at any point, you can use this X, which is to extract. All right, so this is to untar the files. So here I can say tar hyphen xvf and then the file. So whatever the compressed files you have in this, you will get it back. Yeah, so here I've got the files back. And then you have TVF. Now at any point, if you want to list what all files you have in your, like you don't want to uncompress it, you don't want to unzip it, you just want to see what all files you have in that compressed files. Then you can make use of your TVF command. So here I can say tar hyphen TVF and then the file name. So this will only show me what all files I have inside the archive. Questions?
No, Ravi.
No, sir.
Okay. Next is a command line piping. A command line piping is something very commonly used in all of your operating systems, Windows, Linux, macOS, everywhere you will see this. Now, command line piping can be used. So let's say, for example, here I will run a command. For example, let's say let me run this ps-ef command. I'll talk about this command later on, but for now, this will show you the list of processes that are running on your machine. So here, I run this command, I get this output. Now here, if you see, there's a huge output that you've got. Now you want to filter this. So you want to use this output and again run some command on top of this output. So I can make use of a pipe for this. So here, what I can do is I can say ps-ef and I can use this piping, and then I can pass one more command. So what I'm telling here is you run this command first, whatever the output you will get, pass that output as an input to this command. So now if I run this command, well, it is not there. So 1 minute, let me check this. Let me use this command. Now this is a Linux command which can be used to see what all port numbers that are open and running on your machine. So in my case, I have all these port numbers. Now let's say I'm looking for a very specific port number, whether that port number is opened or not. So again, I can make use of a piping for this. So what I'm telling here, you first run this command, whatever the output you will get, pass that output as input to my second command. So grep is like a find command. So I'm telling find, and let's say I'll say 323. Okay, so now you can see I'm only seeing this line and this particular line. So piping can be used whenever you want to pass the output of one command as input to your second command or the next command. We can make use of your piping for that. We can use this with any commands you want, but generally that is how it works. So the output of one command will be used as input to another command. This can be done by making use of a pipe. Questions?
No, Ravi.
Okay. So let's say again talking about this ps command. So let's say I'm looking for this particular process. All right. So what I can do is I can say ps-ef, and then I'll say grep bash. Sorry, bash. So if the process is running, it will show only those processes. So now the entire output, I've taken that output and I'm filtering only this particular process. So this is where we can make use of your piping. The next thing we have is your redirections. Now redirections can be used if you want to control, like, if you want to write some data to your files, you want to redirect something, right? So we can make use of this redirection. So redirection takes the output of a command and sends that output to a text file. So in this case, again, so I'm getting this output, right? Now let's say I want to redirect this output to a text file. I want to write this output to a text file. I can make use of redirection for that. So each command has 3 channels that can be used for redirection. You have standard input, which is this is a reverse. So you are redirecting the data of a file to your terminal. So here, let's say, let's add some data to this file. So here I can say something like this. So whatever the data I have in this file, I'm redirecting it to this command, which will show me the data on the terminal. All right. So this is redirection from left to right. Likewise, let's say I have this command. I want to write the output of this command to a different file. So I can make use of this redirection. So what I'm telling here, you run this command, whatever the output that you will get for this command, you write that output in this file. So now if I run this command, you see it did not show me any output. However, if you look at this file, I will have all the output in this file. So this is simply, you are redirecting the output. That's it. All right. Now there are 2 options with this. You have single greater than symbol and then 2 greater than symbol. Now what this will do is this will always overwrite your data. So let's say netstat-tulpn, and then if I say file 2. So what this will do is this will overwrite the data for me. Okay. So whatever the old data I had, that will be deleted. Now if you want to append the data, then we will use this 2 greater than symbol. So it will have the existing data, and then on top of it, it will add the new data for me. So this is my existing data, and this is the new data. And then you have your 2 greater than. Now, if you want to capture only the errors, then you will be using this 2 greater than symbol. Something like, let's say, ls file.html. So I'm getting an error over here. So if you want to capture this error, so I'm telling you list this, and if only there is an error, you write it to my file. And I can say here it did not throw me the error, but now the error has been captured in my file. Only the errors will be captured. The good output, for example, let's say file 1, file 2, and then file .html. So you can see it is showing me file 1, file 2, and then file.html, it is telling no such file or directory. So what I can do is I can use a redirection. So 2 greater than, I'm telling capture only the error. This is a good output. So it won't be capturing this. So let's say file 4. So you can see the good output, it is shown on the terminal, but only the error will be captured in my file. Questions?
No, Ravi.
No, Ravi.
Okay. The next thing we have is your text editors. So like how on your Windows machines, we have different text editors. Like we have Notepad, Notepad++, and we have many third-party text editors like Sublime, Atom, Visual Text Editors, and then so on. Linux also has its own built-in text editors that we can use to work with your text data. So adding new text data and all those things we can do using these tools. So by default on most of your Linux machines, you'll have this tool called VI or Vim, VIM. So we can use this to open up a file in a text mode, right? Now, if you're using the VI editor, by default, it will open up the file in the read mode only. If you want to write the data to this, you'll have to press I on your keyboard. So when you press I, then it will change to your insert mode. Now I can start adding the data to this. Let's say line 1, line 2, line 3, and then so on. Now, once you're done adding the data to this, how do you exit from here? You'll be using escape, colon, and then WQ. Now, W, it stands for write, Q stands for quit. So you're telling save and exit. If you do want to save this, then you can use Q exclamation mark. You're telling don't save and exit, right? But this is how you can exit from your VI editor. You have one more editor, which is your Nano. I personally use a lot of Nano. This is also a text editor. Now, the main difference between your VI and Nano is your Nano by default open up in the edit mode. So I can start adding the data over here. Unlike your VI, which opens up the file in the read mode by default. Right? So I can start adding the data. How do you exit from your Nano editor? You'll have to use Control plus X, and then it will ask you, like, you have made changes, do you want to save this or not? So Y is to save the change, no is to don't save the change, C is to cancel it, telling okay, I want to continue working. So enter, press Y, and then it will check, ask you for the file name. Is this the file where you want to save the change? So if you want a new file, you can specify the new file over here. Just hit enter, and that will save the changes for you. So once again, now here if you see, if I say Control X, it simply exited. It did not prompt me for anything. Why? Because I've not made any changes. So only if you make any changes, it will prompt you. It will ask you like, hey, you have made some changes. Do you want to save those changes or not? Likewise, we have different text editors, and this is something very commonly you will be using. Especially if you want to edit any config files or anything, you will be using this text editors. Questions?
Sir, for save and exit, Q exclamatory mark, right?
For which one?
For
VI?
nano.
For VI?
For nano. When we
No,
enter
no, no,
VI.
no, no. You don't use any. You just use Control X. That's it.
Okay. After writing the file and we need to exit.
Mhm.
After writing to some files and when we need to exit, Control X is it fine.
Control X. If you have made changes, it will ask you like, do you want to save those changes or not? So
Okay.
Y is to confirm, and then it will ask you the file name. Then just hit enter
Okay.
and done.
Okay.
Next, we have your processes. Now, this can be useful, if you want to see what all processes that are running in your machine, and maybe stop any processes, and all those things can be done. So Linux terminal has a number of useful commands that can display all the processes that are running in your machine. So one of the command we have is your ps command. So your ps is your processes. Now here a very commonly used option we have is your e and f, right? So if you see what is your e, okay, so we don't have e here. Okay, let me see. Okay, so you can see here this ps-ef. Now what does your e and f indicate? So e is to show all the processes, all right? And then f would be, let me see, okay, full format listing. So it will show you in a proper format. Okay, so you have few more options over here, but we're not using that. So generally we use this ps-ef, which is to show you all the processes that are running. So currently in my system, these are all the processes that are running, and this will show you in a proper format. So you know which user started this. So you can see there are few processes started by the EC2 user, and there are few processes started by Bharat as well, right? And what is the process ID, your start time, all this information will be available for you. So this is one way. So at any point, maybe let's say you want to check whether your Java is running or not, whether your Tomcat is running or not, whether your Apache is running or not. You can make use of this ps-ef. This is one way. And again, here you have too many things, right? So now let's say I'm looking for a very specific thing. Let's say I'm looking for this particular thing. So I can make use of your command line piping. So ps-ef grep, and then this particular process. I'm telling, just tell me whether this process is running or not. And you can see here, if the process is running, it will give you the output. If it is not running, it will, it will not give you any output, right? The other command we have is your top command. We can use this command. Now this will also show you the list of processes. However, it will show you as to how many tasks that are running, what is your CPU utilization, what is your memory utilization. So all that information will also be available. So running, sleeping, stopped, zombie processes, how many users you have, since when this machine is running, what is the load average. More information will be available for you. Okay. Now what this will do is this will show you the metrics in real time. So this gets refreshed, you can see it is getting refreshed. So this gets shows you the information in real time. However, this command will only show you the processes that can fit in this screen. So if your screen can only fit 20 processes, it will show only 20 processes. So you have one more command for this, which is your htop command, which will also do the same thing, which will also show you the processes. But in this case, it will show you all the processes. Okay, it is not limited to your screen size. It will show you all the processes over here. So this will also show you the CPU, the memory, your swap, all these informations, your load average, your uptime, and then all the processes that are running. Now, at any point, if you want to kill any process, so let's say we have Bharat, right? Now I want to kill this particular process. I can make use of this process ID, this PID that you see. I can make use of that, and I can kill the process. So I'll simply use this kill. I can also use -9, which is a number. So let me see. We have, let's say this one. I want to kill the SSHD process. So I'll be using this. Now I can use the kill command for that. Now kill, there are a few options that you can pass with this. So you'll give a signal number, signal name. So there are different things that you can do. So what we are going to do here is we're using kill -9, which is to forcefully kill the process. And then the process number. So let's say 2656. So 2656, and this will go ahead and kill the process for us. Now, if I look at this, you can see there are a couple of things that are running. So I can go ahead and kill this as well. So kill -9 and then 2646. 26. I think okay. Killing the SSH session, basically removed everything. So here, if you see, the connection has been closed. So connection was closed by a remote host. So someone closed the session is what it is telling me. Like this, you can control the processes at any point you want. Questions?
No, Ravi.
The last thing I want to talk about is your Linux permissions. Now, again, this is something that you will be doing very often with your files in your Linux machines, files or folders, which is managing the permissions of your files. So, sometimes what happens is, what are the files that you will create? You can see here, this is only applicable to the root user. Now, if you want to give access to any non-root users, how do you do that? So file permissions are used to control the access to the files at a various levels, and each file and directory, you have three user-based permission groups. So you have owner, you have group, and you have all users. So here, if you see this one, starting from here until here, this is basically what defines your permissions, right? So generally, you will see. So generally, sorry, yeah. So generally, RWX, RWX, RWX. You'll have three set of permissions. The first is for the owner. So this will be for the owner. And then the second one will be for your group. And then the third one will be for all other users. So non-root users, anyone who is not part of the group, it is applicable for all other users. So if you see here, the root, the owner has read write permission, group has read permission, all other users have read permission. If you see dash, that means that permission is not there. So in this case, the root user does not have execute permission, the group user does not have write or execute permission, and all other users don't have write or execute permissions, right? Now, how do you give those permissions? We have this command called chmod command, which is you change permissions, modifying your permissions. We can do that by making use of your chmod command. All right. Now, there are two different ways that you can work with this particular command. One is, you can explicitly say what permissions you want to set. Like, for example, let's say plus is to give a permission. So let's say I want to give write and execute permission. Now, to whom you want to give that write and execute permission? So you want to give it to the owner, group, or all other users. So let's say I want to give this to a group. Okay, so I can use this command over here. So I can say chmod plus write execute to the group. Sorry, this will be, it should be like this. So I want to give the permission to a group. I want to give write execute permission, and then your file and the folder name. So which file or which folder you want to give the permission. So I want to give permission to file 1, let's say. Now, if you see here, the permission has been updated. So earlier, we did not have the write execute permission. Now we have the write execute permission only for the group. Now, likewise, let's say you want to give this permission to other user as well, or you can give this for multiple level as well. So let's say you want to give this permission to the group as well as the owner, but now let's say for file 3, right? So now if you see file 3, you can see this permission, it has been updated. Likewise, if you want to remove it, all you have to do is use this minus, which is to remove the permissions. So this will go and remove the permission for us. Any questions?
No, Ravi.
So this is one way. The other way, you have your numeric format, which starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is 7 is the last one. So 0 is no permission. 1 is I think execute permission. 2 will be your write. Wait, hold on, let me remember. Yeah. So this will be your write permission. This will be your execute and write. This will be your read permission. This will be your I think execute and read. This will be your execute and write, and this will be your all the permissions. So execute, read, and write. All right, so you can use this numeric format as well. So let's say, right? So I don't want to set any permission, so I can simply say chmod 0. So first 0 is for your owner, second 0 is for your group, third 0 is for your other users. Okay, and then the file name. So now if you see, there are no permissions for this. Likewise, let's say I want to give only read permission, but only for the owner. I can say chmod 4, which is applicable, which is a read permission, and it is only for the owner. And then 00, which is for the group and all other users, so it will only give the read permission. So you can use this in any combination, right? So depending on the permissions you want to set, but always remember the first number is for the owner, the second number is for the group, and the third number is for your all other users. Questions?
No, Ravi.
All right. So that's basically the, just the basics of Linux that you should be knowing. I mean, obviously there are many more things, but that should, help you get started with your Linux machine, just to move around with your Linux machine. But again, Linux itself is an ocean. There are many things that you can learn with your Linux. But for now, for you to get started, this should be sufficient, right? So the next thing that I want to do is I want to quickly start off with your introduction to DevOps, right? So just to give you one brief understanding about your DevOps. So, it's important that you understand about the life cycles, or we have your SDLCs, your software development life cycle. So what it is, how we work with it. It's important that you understand before we move on to your tools, the different tools. Give me 1 minute. All right. So before we start off with your DevOps, right? So it's important that you understand what is your SDLC. Now, SDLC, it stands for Software Development Lifecycle. But what's your understanding? What do you think SDLC means? Any idea?
Maybe many procedure, I guess, like testing, development.
Okay.
All those comes under SDLC.
Okay.
It's a step-by-step process to develop an application or a program, like
Mm-hmm.
planning, and writing algorithm and coding and testing and deployment.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. So see, if you, it is SDLC is nothing but it's a step-by-step process that we can follow to develop our applications or to develop our software. So any softwares or any applications that you want to follow, if you don't have a step-by-step approach, it can be very difficult for you to develop that software. So imagine, you want to build a house. Now there's a step-by-step process that we follow to build that house, right? So first we start off with your planning, what all you will need, where your kitchen will be, where your hall will be, where your bedroom will be. Now if you don't have that planning and if you start off building the house, now obviously the outcome will be very different than what you want, and then the time taken to develop that would be much longer. So what we have is we have this SDLC, which is a very standard approach that we follow when we talk about developing any applications or any softwares. Now generally when we talk about your SDLCs, the first thing we do is we talk about your requirement gathering. So here we understand what's your requirement. So let's say you're the customer and I'm the company who is going to develop the software for you. So the first thing I need to do is talk to you and understand your requirement. What are you looking for, right? Once that is done, we start off with the designing, so designing and the coding part. So creating the architecture at a high level as to how your application will look like and the architectural design basically. Once that is done, we start off with the implementation. So, as to we start doing the code, developing the applications and everything. Once the implementation is done, we do the testing. So validating the application, making sure everything is working as expected, whatever the use cases you have given, what are the test cases you have given, whether that is satisfied or not. And then we go with your deployment, where we go live. We deploy it in the production environment. And then post that, we start off with your maintenance. So maintenance would be any new features that needs to be added or any bug fixes that needs to be done. All those things can be done in the maintenance phase. So generally, when we talk about your SDLC, this is the life cycle that we follow. Not only softwares, anywhere you go. Like for example, let's say there is a new vehicle that is being launched. Right? So there's a step-by-step process for that as well. First is the requirement gathering. That is understanding the market, whether it will work out or not, right? So once the requirement gathering is done, we start off with your designing. So the chassis, the body of the vehicle and all those things. And then we start doing the implementation. So we start preparing all the parts, we start making all the parts. And then we do the testing, which is basically your test runs. So you test the vehicles for wear and tear and all those things. Once that is done, you deploy it to the market, you go live. And then comes your maintenance, which is adding new features or fixing any problems with the vehicles and all those things. So if you don't have this step-by-step approach, right, it's going to be very difficult for you to develop your applications or develop your software. So that is generally what we call it as your SDLC. Questions?
No, Ravi.
Now, when we talk about your SDLCs, there are different models that we can follow to develop our applications. The first model that was introduced is your waterfall model. So we have the waterfall model, we have the agile model, we have the DevOps model. There's one more model called lean model, but I won't be talking about it. So there are different models that we can follow. These are basically your approaches to develop your applications. All right. So talking about your waterfall model, now this is the first model, or you can think of it as one of the very popular model, which is there from a very long time. All right. Many companies have been using this. So under your waterfall model, that's the oldest way of developing your software in the IT industry. Right. So under this, you have the requirement gathering, you have the system designing, system implementation, system testing, system deployment, and then finally your system maintenance. Right. Now, the problem with your waterfall model is that until your step one is completed, you cannot go to the second step. And once your second step is completed, only then you can go to the third step. And then only when your third step is completed, you can go to the fourth step, and then the fifth step, and then the sixth step. Right. So there is a dependency over here. Right. So until you don't get the approval about the design and coding, you cannot do the implementation. Until you don't get the implementation approval, you cannot go to the testing. Right. So under this, what happens is there is obviously a lot of wait time associated with it. And also, if something goes wrong in the testing, I cannot go back to the previous step. I will have to again start from step one. Right. Like let's say we went to the production and it failed. So I cannot simply go back to the testing, fix it and deploy it. Again, I have to start with step one. So do the requirement gathering, again designing, again implementing, testing, and then deployment. So the time taken to develop your applications is much more. And um, this model is ideal when you don't you have a fixed requirement. So with this, you cannot keep on changing your requirements. If you keep on doing that, then the time taken to develop your applications will be much more. So some of the challenges that you have under this is, so this model worked fine and served well for many years. However, it had some challenges. So from the developers perspective, huge waiting time for the code deployment. So the developers will develop the code, but then the time taken to deploy the code was a lot. And then pressure of work on old pending and new code. So the developers had to work on a lot of things at the same time. So there was a lot of pressure on them. From the operations side, difficult to maintain uptime of the production environment. So making sure the application is up and running always. Tools to automate infrastructure management were not very effective. Number of servers to be monitored was very huge and it kept on increasing, and difficult to diagnose and provide feedback on the product. Right. So these were the challenges of your waterfall model. To solve these challenges, your next model was introduced, which is your agile model. I will talk about this tomorrow, but this is basically your waterfall model. All right. So we'll continue with this tomorrow. We'll talk about this and then we will start off with your Git and GitHub tomorrow as well. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you, Ravi.